I think I'm still in a bit of shock and denial, frankly, and I was sitting in the makeup chair when I heard somebody say, "Oh, Robert Redford died." Hollywood legends are weeping. A nation is mourning because somewhere in the mountains of Utah, the most beautiful man who ever graced the silver screen took his final bow. Robert Redford is gone at 89, and the tributes pouring in are absolutely stunning, but none more beautiful than what we're hearing from Meryl Streep, the woman who knew him better than almost anyone else. How did Robert Redford pass? And what is Hollywood saying about him? Join us as we unveil how Meryl Streep stuns the entire world with powerful tribute. Life of a legend. The news almost broke the internet. Hollywood icon Robert Redford passed away at his Utah home at the age of 89. He was one of the industry's most desired leading men for more than half a century. Robert Redford. Meet us with some of Hollywood's most unforgettable characters. Let's take a brief look at his legendary life. Born on August 18th, 1936 in Santa Monica, California, to Charles Robert Redford, Anne, accountant for Standard Oil, and Martha Redford. Charles Robert Redford Jr. was a rather scrappy kid who stole hubcaps in high school and lost his college baseball scholarship at the University of Colorado because of drunkenness. However, as a high school student, he had displayed a certain aptitude as a caricaturist, and this contributed to his decision to seriously study art. "Oh, I work in the linotype room. 2 nights a week." "You never quit, do you?" Redford enjoyed a year-long sojourn traveling around Europe, hitchhiking, living in youth, host, and generally living the painter's life. Eventually, he came to realize that his work was unoriginal and not very good. For that reason, he returned to New York to pursue studies in theatrical design at the Pratt Institute of Art. He subsequently enrolled in acting classes at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. By the end of 1960, he was already on Broadway in a series of plays including Barefoot in the Park, which launched him to fame. TV and stage experience coupled with his all-American good looks led to movies and a breakthrough role in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid when the actor was 33 at the time, The Way We Were, and the Sting. Both in 1973 made Redford #1 at the box office for the next 3 years. He wasn't in college when he didn't lift a finger for Spain. Connor was isolationist. He used his clout to advance environmental causes and his riches to acquire Utah property, which he transformed into a ranch and the Sundance ski resort. Redford wanted to try something new, so he stepped behind the camera and won his first Oscar for Ordinary People, the first of many films he directed. And in truth, the man's legacy reaches far beyond Hollywood. In 1980, he established the Sundance Institute for Aspiring Filmmakers. Its annual film festival has become one of the world's most influential. He waited 8 years before getting behind the camera, again this time for the screen version of John Nichols' acclaimed novel of the Southwest, The Magro-Beanfield War. He scored with critics and fans in 1992 with the Brad Pitt film A River Runs Through It, and again in 1994 with Quiz Show, which earned him yet another Best Director nomination. It would not be an overstatement to say that Robert spent a lifetime giving us all something to remember. Let's talk about what made Robert Redford truly special, the Sundance legacy. Yes, he was gorgeous. Yes, he was talented, but what really set him apart was his vision for independent film. As mentioned, Redford founded the Sundance Institute in 1980 after winning the Oscar for directing Ordinary People. The festival became a launchpad for previously unknown filmmakers such as Quentin Tarantino, Steven Soderbergh, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Darren Aronofsky. Think about that for a second. Quentin Tarantino, Steven Soderbergh, Paul Thomas Anderson. These are directors who shaped modern cinema, and they all got their start because Robert Redford believed in independent voices. In an interview with the Associated Press in 2018, he famously said for him the word to be underscored is independence. "I've always believed in that word. Then it's stupid and dangerous. What are you telling me to do? Sit by and shut up just because it's dangerous? I'm telling you it's a waste. That's what led to me eventually wanting to create a category that supported independent artists who weren't given a chance to be heard. The industry was pretty well controlled by the mainstream, which I was a part of. But I saw other stories out there that weren't having a chance to be told, and I thought, well, maybe I can commit my energies to giving those people a chance. As I look back on it, I feel very good about that. That's the Robert Redford that many ladies had crushes on. Not just the beautiful man, but the man with vision, with principles, with the courage to use his fame for something bigger than himself. By 2025, the Sundance Festival had become so prominent that organizers decided they had outgrown Park City and approved relocating to Boulder, Colorado. Redford issued a statement saying that change is inevitable. We must always evolve and grow, which has been at the core of our survival, even at 89, even as he was preparing for his final chapter. I said, well, yeah, I can do that, but I'm much more drawn to the Sundance. Kid? Redford was still thinking about evolution, about growth. That's the man. Everyone always knew, always moving forward, always looking for the next challenge. Redford acted well into his later years, reuniting with Jane Fonda in the 2017 Netflix film Our Souls at Night. The following year, he starred in The Old Man in the Gun. At age 82, film he said would be his last. But even then, he wasn't really retiring. To me, retirement means stopping something or quitting something, he told CBS Sunday Morning back in 2018. There's this life to lead. Why not live it as much as you can, as long as you can? That philosophy, live life as much as you can, as long as you can. That's what made his friendship with some of his tributers so enduring. They understood that art, that connection, that the work you create together can outlast everything else. Speaking of outlining, things Redford can relate with that. So, well, his personal life is not what you think. Personal life and losses. In some respects, we can say that Redford had a fairly typical childhood growing up in California during the 40s and 50s. He played multiple sports, including tennis, football and track and field, but particularly excelled in baseball. Beyond athletics, he loved reading Greek mythology and the Sunday comics. Yet, some of his struggles were unique. He overcame a mild case of polio at age 11. And not long after that, his twin sisters died shortly after they were born. Redford later said his family navigated their deaths like they did any other challenge by not talking about it. In his words to NPR's Fresh Air in 2018, "You don't ask for anything, you bear the brunt of whatever comes your way, and you do it with grace." So as a result, when my mum went through that, there was no talk about it. Everybody moved on. Returning to the US after a year and a half abroad, Redford started a family with his first wife, Lola Van Wagenen, whom he married in 1958. The couple were excited to welcome their son Scott in September of the following year. But the child died of sudden infant death syndrome within months. According to Redford, they were just starting their lives. He was just starting his career in New York. Of course, it was traumatic. And how that plays out over time, he didn't know. They had to deal with it. Robert Redford has captivated audiences from both sides of the camera through entertaining motion pictures that often explore. One had to move on, but he admitted that it's pretty traumatic when it happens, particularly when one is that young and is not equipped to deal with it. Redford, who was only 21 at the time, immersed himself into his new passion for acting. Meanwhile, he and his wife went on to have 3 more children, Shauna, Jamie, and Amy, between 1960 and 1970. In 1983, his daughter Shauna's boyfriend, Sid Wells, passed away from a gunshot wound in an apparent attack. At the time, Redford was filming the baseball movie The Natural with co-stars Robert Duvall and Glenn Close. According to The Mirror, he halted production so that he could attend Sid's funeral. Meanwhile, his son Jaime was diagnosed with primary sclerosing cholangitis, a disease affecting the liver and bile ducts. In 1993, he underwent 2 liver transplants. The second because the replacement liver had a faulty valve, according to the Salt Lake Tribune. Woodcock, you all right? Hey, Redford offered Jamie a screenwriting job to boost his son's morale during the ordeal. Haim later said that his father knew he was at his lowest, that there were so few people for him to lean on, and he gave him this gesture of hope, something to hang in for. He recovered and continued working alongside his father for years before he died from bile duct cancer in October 2020. For the Hollywood icon, Jamie's death was one more loss to bear, largely in private. He was quoted saying he'd always separated himself from the private, so I could have one. He believed he didn't owe his life to the public. A performance, yes, but his life, no you. But considering how much emotion Redford could convey on screen, often with few words, there's no denying that his feelings in the wake of numerous personal tragedies helped fuel his legendary performances. Regardless of all the losses, Redfo lived a relatively long life. But even though he had to go someday, it just wasn't expected to happen when it did. Death and tributes. September 16th, 2025 was a sad day. The day Hollywood lost one of its greatest icons. Robert Redford passed away at his home at Sundance in the mountains of Utah, surrounded by those he loved. The icon known for his classics is gone, and Hollywood is still reeling from the loss. When the news of Redford's passing hit the internet, the sadness was clear. But what's really getting people emotional right now is not just the passing or the number of tributes that are flooding in from every corner of Hollywood. It is the fact. And the tributes are simply stunning, each one more heartbreaking than the last. Barbara Streisand described him as charismatic, intelligent, intense, always interesting, and one of the finest actors ever. Jane Fonda, who shared the silver screen with Redford on a number of occasions, you hear. It's a foreign country. He can't take you back either. He's not going to take anybody back. He wants to finish us here. Describes Redford as a beautiful person in every way. She explained that it hit her hard when I read that Robert had passed. She couldn't stop crying. According to her, Robert meant a lot and was a beautiful person in every way. He stood for an America they'd have to keep fighting for. The pair developed a long-lasting friendship after co-starring in various films together, including in Redford's big-screen debut in 1960 when he played a minor role in Tall Story. Fonda has previously admitted to falling in love with him each time they worked together. American filmmaker James Gunn shared a tribute to Redford on Instagram following his death. The Superman director wrote that he grew up with Redford's movies, his quiet, unforced performances, and ever-present grace. He was the movie star and will be greatly missed. He also shared his top 10 Redford films aside from The Sting and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which include The Candidate, Barefoot in the Park, and The Natural. Antonio Banderas, in a tribute posted on X, calls Redford an icon of cinema in every sense. According to him, Redford's talent will continue to move him forever, shining through the frames and in his memory. Even the political world is reacting. President Donald Trump told of Redford's passing while speaking to reporters before his visit to the UK said, "Robert Redford had a series of years where there was nobody better. Even in a divided political climate, Redford's talent transcended everything." Utah Governor Spencer Cox wrote, "Decades ago, Robert Redford came to Utah and fell in love with this place. He cherished our landscapes and built a legacy that made Utah a home for storytelling and creativity. Through Sundance and his devotion to conservation, he shared Utah with the world. Today, we honor his life, his vision, and his lasting contribution to our state. The legacy lives on, but it's Meryl Streep's way of honoring her. Out of Africa co-star saying, 'One of the lions has passed. Rest in peace, my lovely friend.' That really caught attention. When Meryl Streep calls you one of the lions, you know you've made an impact. And the way she's honored him over the years shows a love and respect that goes beyond anything Hollywood usually produces. What is most striking about all these tributes is how they focus not just on Redford's beauty or his fame, but on his impact, the lives he touched. Arrest you here? It's a foreign country. We can't take you back either. He's not going to take anybody back. He wants to finish his here. The careers he launched, the stories he helped tell. That's what real stardom looks like. Using one's platform to lift others up. Meryl Streep understood that about him from the beginning. She saw past the golden hair and perfect jaw to the man who wanted to make meaningful films, who wanted to support independent voices, who wanted to use his success to create opportunities for others. The duo's relationship in the film, directed by Sidney Pollack, remains an iconic touchstone in Redford's career. Pollack, the son of Jewish immigrants, would direct Redford in 7 of his 21 films. Even his choice of collaborator showed his values. He worked with Sidney Pollack 7 times because he trusted him, because they shared a vision. That's what made Robert Redford stunning. Not just his looks, but his loyalty, his principles, his commitment to excellence. And that's what made Meryl Streep's tributes to him so meaningful over the years. She recognized all of that in him. In case one is wondering why Meryl Streep is so concerned, take a look at their relationship. The unspoken chemistry. Now that the icon has passed, it appears that the Oscar winner will have a funeral that is very unholy-like. The Hollywood star left specific instructions for a simple family-only funeral, and his representative confirmed that it will be quiet. No red carpets, no cameras, no Hollywood circus. The family requests privacy. Redford's wife Sybil, daughters Shauna and Amy, and 7 grandchildren will gather in the Utah mountains for a low-key service to bid farewell to the beloved father and grandfather, the site added. This news comes after Paul Newman's family have paid tribute to Redford following his death. For the funeral, while the family requests privacy, everyone knows that when the memorial services are announced, they're going to be extraordinary. Why not? This was a man who touched every corner of the entertainment industry. The actors he worked with, the directors he discovered, the causes he championed. Everyone is going to want to say goodbye. And of course, Meryl Streep will be there. How could she not be? The woman who starred with him in Out of Africa, who recognized his depth when others only saw his beauty, who maintained a friendship with him for over 40 years. She'll be there to honor the man who helped create one of cinema's greatest love stories. Let's go back to 1985. The relationship between Robert Redford and Meryl Streep is often remembered as one of the most striking and natural pairings in film history. Their collaboration reached its peak in Out of Africa, Sidney Pollack's sweeping romantic drama. James Hillman was called the Soul's Code, and he talks about this thing called the acorn, something you were meant to do or be. Redford, already a Hollywood icon, and Stray, who was at the height of her artistic powers, brought together 2 very different energies that blended seamlessly on screen. Redford, of course, brought his signature charisma, understated strength, and intensity. He had the ability to communicate volumes with just a glance, a pause, or the smallest gesture. Streep, on the other hand, was deliberate, deeply emotive, and layered in her performance, often diving fully into the psychology of her characters. Rather than clashing, these contrasting styles created a magnetic balance that captivated audiences. The chemistry was not loud or exaggerated, but subtle and believable, which made their connection even more compelling. During a question and answer session, Meryl Streep reflected on her famous scene with Robert Redford, where he intimately washed her hair in the film Out of Africa. In the epic romantic drama, Stray starred as a Danish baroness who falls in love with a big game hunter played by Redford while running a coffee plantation in colonial South Africa. I was just kind of wondering why your name and phone number were in the address books of 2 of the men arrested at Watergate. The movie's iconic moment features Redford tenderly washing Street's hair by a river while reciting lines from an English poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Unfortunately, Redford was not initially a gifted hairstylist during the shampoo scene, Stray said. So she got her longtime hair and makeup artist Roy Helen to take Redford aside to give him a few pointers, she explained. Somehow it worked. Redford took the lesson, and he just really got into it, and he was great. By take 5, Stree was, in her own words, so in love. Off-screen, their professional respect for one another was equally strong. Redford admired Streep's commitment to craft, while Stray spoke of Redford's ability to bring natural ease to a performance without overcomplicating it. This mutual respect translated directly into the honesty of their on-screen relationship. Their pairing is still cited as an example of how 2 powerhouse actors can elevate a love story into something timeless. Unlike fleeting Hollywood chemistry that relies on physical attraction alone, Redford and Street brought depth, restraint, and a shared gravitas that made their work resonate across decades. In all these, what did the legend really leave behind? True legacy. The entertainment industry is in mourning today, and the reactions are pouring in from every corner of the business. Omen Domingo posted with love and admiration. Thank you, Mr. Redford, for your everlasting impact will be felt for generations. R.I.P. Ron Howard wrote, Neebid, a tremendously influential cultural figure for the creative choices made as an actor, producer, director, and for launching the Sundance Film Festival, which supercharged America's independent film movement, artistic game show. Kenneth Cole was stunned by the loss of Robert Redford, a colleague. Kenneth Cole was a visionary friend, an idol, and a legendary artist he created at Sundance.org, or where countless artists found their voice and audiences found their stories. His legacy has inspired me and so many others for decades and will live on. In his 70s heyday, few actors possessed Redford's star wattage, aided considerably by his tail's blonde locks, granite jaw, and million-dollar smile. With his environmental activism, anti-establishment approach to film and pioneering efforts in providing a platform for indie filmmakers, Redford was able to use his celebrity to subvert the status quo while advancing his own creative agenda. like Gary Cooper, Gregory Peck, and Steve McQueen. Robert Redford was never about having a particularly wide range as an actor, but as a movie star in his prime, few could touch him. That's what Barbara Streisand saw in him. Not just the surface beauty, but the depth underneath. The man could hold his own opposite Paul Newman, who could carry a film like All the President's Men, who could step behind the camera and direct Oscar-winning films like Ordinary People. Redford would star in 16 features between 1969 and 1980. Many of them hits that traded on his remarkable screen presence. Downhill Racer, The Hot Rock, Jeremiah Johnson, The Candidate, The Way We Were with Barbara Streisand, The Great Gatsby with Mia Farrow, The Great Waldo Pepper, 3 Days of the Condor with Faye Dunaway, The Electric Horseman with Jane Fonda and Brew Baker. That's the Robert Redford that few people got to see, the playful one, the one who liked to joke around, the one who appreciated other people's energy and spirit. Street brought that out in him, and he brought out her more vulnerable side. Their professional relationship was stunning because it was built on mutual respect and genuine affection. In Hollywood, that's rarer than you might think. Too many partnerships are about ego, about who gets top billing, about who shines brighter. Redford is survived by his wife Sable Seg Redford and his 2 children Shauna Redford Scholler and Amy Redford August. 2 of his last 3 helming efforts, Lions for Lambs about Americans' complicity in Afghanistan and The Conspirator, which examined the kangaroo court justice exercised in the aftermath of the Lincoln assassination, continued Redford's proclivity for politically driven drama. Even in his final films, he was still asking hard questions, still pushing boundaries. He delivered a remarkably primal, almost entirely silent performance in J.C. Chandor's film All Is Lost about a man stranded alone at sea. Though an Oscar nomination somehow eluded him, that film feels prophetic now. It did. And then had to wait. I had to wait for 2 years before I can get the money to build my own house, which I did. A man alone facing the vast unknown, relying on his own strength and determination to survive. During his career, Redford was often described as a sex symbol, particularly during the 1970s. The BBC News called his appeal all-American good looks that couldn't be ignored. The Associated Press noted that Redford's wavy blonde hair and boyish grin made him the most desired of leading men during the height of his career. However, Redford himself rejected the label of being a sex symbol. In an interview with the New York Times, Redford responded to his image as a symbol by saying he never thought of himself as a glamorous guy, a handsome guy, any of that stuff. Suddenly there's this image. He believed glamour image can be a real handicap. Following Redford's passing, an obituary published in Variety remarked that he became a godfather for independent film as founder of the Sundance Film Institute. That as a movie star in his prime, few could touch him. Writing for The Guardian, Andrew Pulver characterized Redford as a giant of American cinema and one of the defining movie stars of the 1970s, crossing with ease between the Hollywood New Wave and the mainstream film industry. The Los Angeles Times remembered Redford as a generational icon. In France, Culture Minister Rachida Dati praised him as a giant of American cinema. As the founder of Sundance Film Festival, he has been described as a godfather of independent cinema. The New York Times noted that Redford's films were known for depicting serious topics such as corruption and grief that resonated with the masses, as he wanted his films to carry cultural weight, and that Redford took risks by exploring dark and challenging material. He was hailed as one of few truly iconic screen figures of the past half-century, and as Hollywood's golden boy by The Hollywood Reporter, James Hillman, and it was called The Soul's Code, and he talks about this thing called the acorn, which something you were meant to do or be. Filmmaker Ron Howard praised Redford and his work, calling him a tremendously influential cultural figure and an artistic gameshow. His creation of the Sundance Film Festival was credited as a boost to independent filmmaking. After he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2016, the Salt Lake Tribune called Redford's Sundance Film Festival a catalyst for an explosion of independent films. Time noted Redford's environmental activism, calling him fiercely dedicated to pushing for a world that was habitable for all, and mentioning that the Redford Foundation helped support environmentally friendly filmmaking. His environmental awareness led to Fox News remembering Redford as a Hollywood icon who committed himself to being a good steward of the environmental movement and a champion of the American Southwest. In 2016, Then President Barack Obama called Redford one of the foremost conservationists of our generation. So, as the world awaits for news of the memorial services, as Hollywood processes the loss of this incredible man, it is known that Robert Redford's real legacy were the feelings he inspired, the dreams he encouraged, the independent voices he amplified through Sundance. He showed the world that beauty with substance is truly stunning, that stardom with purpose can change the world, and through it all, Meryl Streep was there, recognizing his worth, celebrating his talent, maintaining their friendship decade after decade. Her tributes to him over the years weren't just stunning because of what she said. They were stunning because of the love and respect they represented. Will Hollywood respect the family's desire for privacy at the funeral? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.